Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Budget Magic. So today, we are playing a deck that is by far my favorite deck so far from Eldritch Moon Standard. This deck is so incredibly fun to play and also really competitive against the top decks in the format. So Burn last week was awesome, super competitive, but this deck is good and also just incredibly fun to play. This might be one of my favorite budget magics of all time, actually. It's just so much fun to play this deck. So I'm talking about a deck I'm calling Evolutionary Dredge in Standard. As you can see, 92 bucks in the paper world, only 24 ticks online, so super cheap, especially on Magic Online. A quick reminder before we break down this super spicy deck. If you enjoy Evolutionary Dredge and you enjoy Budget Magic, it would be awesome of you if you could just take a quick second and click the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. All those things are great ways that you can support the site for free. Anyway, let's talk about this deck. So this package is it's on turn 2 when we want to fill our graveyard package. Our deck is a graveyard deck. We need cards in the graveyard. The whole idea of this deck, like any Dredge deck, is to get cards in our graveyard and get them back out of our graveyard. So Vessel, Grapple with the Past, Gather the Pack, these are just the best ways in Standard to do that. They all give us some extra value as well, pulling a creature or sometimes a land or other type out of our deck, putting it in our hand. So we get some value there. The one important thing to note about these cards is, say Gather the Pack, for example. We cast it, we hit one creature, we really want that creature in our graveyard. We can choose just to dump everything in the graveyard. We don't have to actually take a creature with Gather the Pack, and all these cards work that way. So keep that in mind. There are situations in this deck where it's better just to use Gather the Pack or Vessel as a mill 5 or a mill 4 rather than actually putting cards in our hand. But overall, these cards are just, on the first couple turns of the game, ways to start filling our graveyard. It starts our engine running and getting set up for some incredible value as we go along. Then we also have a couple of ways to discard cards from our hand. So every once in a while, we actually draw a card that we would rather have in our graveyard. So instead of casting that card, waiting for it to die, we can just discard it to a Noose Constrictor, or especially Sinister Concoction, which is a really good card. I kind of like this card just in general right now, especially if you're doing anything with your graveyard, but it's an answer to Emrakul for 1 mana that you can just sit out on the battlefield. Opponent casts the Emrakul, you sack this, discard a card, pay a life, mill a card, whatever, and you kill an Emrakul. Yes, they get your turn, but at least they don't have a 13/13, which makes Emrakul a lot less good. But basically, we can use this to kill something, discard one of our pseudo Dredge cards, get them in the graveyard to start our value Dredge engine package. Also, it's an answer to Kalitas. It's our one real main deck answer to Kalitas, and Kalitas is a card that we gotta be aware of with this deck, because the second ability where it exiles things when they die is really bad for our deck, so we want to be able to kill Kalitas as well. So then we have the start of our Dredge engine package, and you've probably seen this before. It's seen play in Zombies and some Emerge decks, but Haunted Dead and Prized Amalgams. Haunted Dead is the single card that we want in our graveyard more than anything else. Basically, we get it in our graveyard, we get to start paying 2, discarding 2 cards, getting it back, getting the Spirit token, and then we have the Prized Amalgams, which trigger off the Haunted Dead. So when we get back the Haunted Dead by paying 2, discarding 2 cards, we also get back any and all Prized Amalgams in our graveyard. So this is one of the reasons why we're trying to fill our graveyard. This is why we're playing Noose Constrictor and Sinister Concoction, so we can discard the Haunted Dead and get this value plan running. So hopefully we can start doing this on turn 3, usually, turn 4, sometime early in the game, and just get increasing amounts of value out of this package. One neat trick with these cards is, say we have a Haunted Dead in the graveyard and our Prized Amalgam is in our hand, we can actually discard the Prized Amalgam to pay the cost of returning Haunted Dead. The discard 2 cards, pay 2 mana, and then the way the timing works is the Prized Amalgam will be in the graveyard when Haunted Dead enters the battlefield. So it actually triggers the Prized Amalgam, so we're going to get it back on our next end step. So we can essentially put Prized Amalgams from our hand onto the battlefield without paying any mana with the help of Haunted Dead. So keep that in mind if you play the deck. And then the thing that makes this deck super awesome is we are all in on the Dredge plan. So we're not only playing the Prized Amalgam Haunted Dead package, we're also playing Dem Protector Deathless Raptor, the old school graveyard package. So Dem Protector is just a really good value card. It can get back a land, it can get back some of our one-ofs like the Sinister Concoction, some of our finishers that we'll talk about later. But the real idea is because we play Dem Protector, we can also play Deathless Raptors as prized amalgams 5 through 8. So we have 8 cards that we can flip out of our graveyard, get back to the battlefield for free. So we just want to mill almost every card in our deck. We just want to mill so we can get it back. And the real spicy thing is Deathless Raptor actually triggers prized amalgams. So there are situations where we will have an empty board, have a bunch of stuff in our graveyard, and we'll play a Dem Protector, flip a Dem Protector, trigger up to 4 Deathless Raptors. When they enter the battlefield, they trigger up to 4 prized amalgams. So we go from 0 power on the battlefield to having like 25 or 26 power on the battlefield with a single Den Protector. And then we get to do this repeatedly because in the late game, we can start looping Den Protectors. We Den Protector, get back a Den Protector, triggers all of our stuff. We can do some cool value-y tricks that we're going to talk about to get things back in our graveyard, and then just do it all over again. So it gets incredibly grindy. The card that makes all of this work, the namesake card, the card that makes Evolutionary Dredge is Evolutionary Leap. Evolutionary Leap is just insane value. So on level 1, it's a 2-mana enchantment. You pay 1, sack a creature, and get a random creature from your deck, basically. You reveal cards, so you hit a creature, put it in your hand, the rest go to the bottom. But on level 1, Evolutionary Leap protects our stuff from exile-based removal. So Incendiary Flow, Declaration in Stone, getting our prized amalgams and so forth hit by those cards is pretty bad. So we can use Evolutionary Leap to just sack in response. But the real plan of this deck is to use Evolutionary Leap with Haunted Dead. This is just the most insane value package. So here's how it works. We get an Evolutionary Leap on the battlefield. We have the Haunted Dead in the graveyard. We get the Haunted Dead back by discarding 2 cards, and then we can sack the Haunted Dead, sack the Spirit Token to Evolutionary Leap, which is going to get us 2 new cards, and then we can just immediately get back the Haunted Dead by discarding the creatures we got with Evolutionary Leap. And since our deck is full of Deathless Raptors and prized amalgams that we actually actively want in our graveyard, it's a way that we just cycle through our entire deck, and before long we're going to have all of our prized amalgams and all of our Deathless Raptors. So every turn we are just getting back 20 plus power, swinging, doing some damage, sacking stuff for value, getting them back again the next turn. We can also do some cool tricks with Evolutionary Leap and prized amalgams, where if we have 2 prized amalgams, we trigger them, the first one comes back. In response to the second one's trigger to come back from the graveyard, we can sack the first one to Evolutionary Leap, get another creature, and then when the second one enters the battlefield, it's going to trigger the first one again to come back on the next upkeep. So we get a ton of free Evolutionary Leap triggers. And this cycles us through our deck, finds our Den Protectors, so we can set up the Dem Protector loop, where every turn we are sacking a Den Protector to Evolutionary Leap, flipping another Den Protector to get back the first one, and getting back all of our Death Miss, all of our prized amalgams, sacking them in between for value. So it just gets incredibly out of hand with Evolutionary Leap. So that's kind of the late game plan of the deck. As far as actually finishing the game, we have ways where we sack our creatures for value. So we're getting all of our stuff back every turn. So one of the best ways to take advantage of that is by sacking our stuff, because we get to sack for free. Normally when you see sack 3 creatures, sack 5 creatures, that's supposed to be a major cost. You're wrathing your own board to make something happen. Well, in our deck, we don't even care because we're guaranteed to just get all those creatures back, so we're not even sacking them. We just get to do those things for free. So the 2 big ones are Voldaren Pariah, 5 mana 3/3. You can Madness it for 3 black mana. You get to sack 3 creatures, and it flips around into a 6/5, which makes an opponent sack 3 creatures. So basically, we just wrath our opponent's board out, sacking Haunted Deads, prized amalgams, and as I said, they're free sacrifices because we're going to get them all back, kill all our opponent's creatures. It's amazingly good against some of the big creature decks, people that are playing Emeralds and Elder Deep Fiends, because we're killing their huge expensive creatures at absolutely no loss to ourselves, and then eventually, if we need to, we can get back Voldaren Prias with our Dem Protectors and do it all over again. So in the late game, we just wrath away our opponent's stuff a lot until we win. It's also just a 6/5 flyer. Westville Abbey kind of does the same thing. We sack 5 creatures, which, when we're getting back multiple prized amalgams, haunted deads, Deathless Raptors every turn, is really no cost. Get an Ormondal, huge lifelinking flyer, gains us some life, puts us out of range of burn spells and things like that, and then we just get all the creatures back, do it all over again. So those are our 2 main ways of winning the game. So I was playing the deck with just this version, and then I realized there were some situations where I wanted just a little more oomph to actually finish the game, and realized that 1 Decimator of Provinces is the super awesome finisher for this deck. So since we're getting tons of Evolutionary Leap triggers every turn, we cycle through our deck super fast. So even though we only have a single Decimator of Provinces, we're very likely to find it thanks to our Evolutionary Leap, and then we just get all of our stuff back, our prized amalgams, our haunted deads, our Deathless Raptors, use a Haunted Dead to emerge a Decimator of the Provinces for 5 mana, and then trample over for the win in one shot. As far as the mana base, we're really heavily weighted towards green and black. In fact, I almost played 0 blue mana, but I ended up with 1 island and 1 Yavimaya Coast. I don't think I've ever actually cast a prized amalgam. This is a green-black dredge deck that just uses prized amalgam for value. So we're getting in our graveyard, we're discarding it, we're milling it. We are almost never actually casting it. In fact, I don't know if I ever have actually cast a prized amalgam, so I was tempted to just go straight green and black with mana, but I decided it's kind of a free roll with Evolving Wilds to play a single island, but we want a lot of green mana so we can activate Evolutionary Leap a bunch of times in the same turn, and then we want a lot of black mana so we can Madness the Voldaren Priya for only 3 mana. Works really well if we have 4 black mana and 1 mana of any color. We can discard the Voldaren Priya at instant speed to a Haunted Dead, get back the Haunted Dead, a Spirit, prized amalgams and so forth, Madness of Voldaren Priya, flip it, so it's like this instant speed wrath that we can do against our opponents. As far as the sideboard, we're weighted towards dealing with specific things. So this slide, pretty much all these cards are to deal with Kalitas. Kalitas is really bad for our deck because it stops our whole sack everything for value, get it all back plan. It's the best graveyard hate spell in the format. And then we also have some ways to attack our opponent's hand: Duress, Transgress, Negate to protect our stuff from spells, and then a Clip Wings to also deal with Emrakul, but also Avacyn's and stuff like that. So we're not especially worried about Wrath with this deck. We're fine with getting Wrath because we can get everything back. But like I said, the Exile removal is important, and Kalitas is the main thing. That's the most prevalent way that our opponent can beat our deck. Also, our opponent playing Infinite Obliteration is pretty annoying. Not unbeatable because we have the backup plan of just Dem Protector and Deathless Raptor, which can still get there. Usually they will target our prized amalgams with an Infinite Obliteration, so we can still get there, but it is annoying. And things like Negate, Transgress a Mine, and Duress deal with Infinite Obliteration. And then just the 4th Evolutionary Leap. We always want an Evolutionary Leap in this deck. So we're playing 3 in the main, which is the always want 1 number, but we rarely want more than 1. Good news is we can discard extras. However, if we're playing a deck that's going very heavily on removal, we sometimes bring in the 4th to just guarantee we have 1 because it's very good in those situations. So that is Evolutionary Dredge in Standard, and this deck is just so awesome. I've had really, I know I say this a lot that I like the decks and I'm having fun, but I had so much fun playing this deck. Like, more fun playing this deck than I have in a long time. The sign for me of a good deck when I make Budget Magic is that I just can't stop playing it, and I think I've played more games with this deck than any Budget Magic I've made in a few months at least. I just keep playing it and keep playing it and keep playing it for fun and trying to run into different matchups. So sometimes I record just the 5 matches for Budget Magic, kind of move on to the next thing. This one has just hooked me in, and I just can't stop playing it. So anyway, that's Evolutionary Dredge for Standard. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay videos, and I will talk to you soon.